This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're diving into a topic that has fascinated philosophers and scientists for centuries.
It's a big one.
Consciousness. We're going to try to tackle the science of consciousness.
Exactly, and we're going to stick to the science, no mystical mumbo-jumbo here.
Right, just a deep dive into what researchers are actually discovering about, how our brains create this thing we call awareness.
It really is incredible, isn't it? This
Yeah.
whole experience of being aware of ourselves and the world around us.
Okay, so much to unpack here.
Absolutely.
But I think we need to start with the basics.
For sure.
How do scientists even define consciousness?
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there. That's the first hurdle.
It does seem like such a slippery concept.
It really is.
You try to grasp it and it just kind of slips away.
It's one of the most challenging concepts to define, let alone explain.
I think we found a quote in our research that kind of sums it up perfectly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It said, if awareness of the environment is the criterion of consciousness, then even the protozoans are conscious. If awareness of awareness is required, then it's doubtful whether the great apes and human infants are conscious.
Okay. So already we're in murky waters, right?
Yeah, like where do you even begin to draw the line?
Well, Max Velmans, who's a leading consciousness researcher, suggests we start with the everyday understanding of consciousness.
Okay, what does that even mean?
Well, it essentially refers to experience itself, What does it feel like to be you right now in this moment?
Okay, so just the raw feeling of being present.
Exactly. That's consciousness in its simplest form.
But that still doesn't tell us how it works, does it?
No, not at all. And that leads us to one of the biggest philosophical puzzles of all time, the mind-body problem.
No, yeah, the classic mind-body problem.
Sure.
How do our mental processes like thoughts and feelings relate to the physical processes happening in our brains?
It's a question that's been plaguing philosophers and scientists for centuries.
So is that where Descartes' idea of dualism comes in? He basically said that the mind and body are two totally separate things, right?
Exactly. He believed that the mind was a non-physical substance, the res cogitans, and the body was purely material, the res extensa.
And they somehow interacted, but he never really explained how did he.
Not really. He sort of left that part a bit vague.
It all sounds a bit mystical for a scientific deep dive, to be honest.
Well, dualism has fallen out of favor in modern neuroscience for that very reason.
It raises more questions than it answers.
Exactly. And the focus now is on understanding how consciousness emerges from the physical matter of the brain using scientific methods and evidence.
Okay, so what are some of the leading scientific theories out there?
There are quite a few, but let's start with one of the most prominent ones, the global workspace theory.
Okay, I've heard of that one. Break it down for me.
So imagine a theater stage. The spotlight shines on certain actors and actions, bringing them into our conscious awareness.
Okay, I'm following.
But there's a whole lot happening backstage that we're not aware of. That's like the unconscious processes in our brains. GWT suggests that consciousness arises when information from various brain regions is integrated and broadcast into this global workspace.
So consciousness is like the star of the show,
Yes,
and the brain is the bustling theater where it all comes together.
that's a great analogy.
I like that.
It highlights how consciousness isn't localized in a single part of the brain, but rather emerges from this dynamic interplay of different brain areas.
It's not just about individual brain regions doing their thing. It's about how they work together to create something bigger.
Exactly. And that's a key insight that several other theories also explore, but from different angles.
Like what?
Well, for example, integrated information theory proposes that consciousness is directly related to the complexity of information processing in a system.
So the more interconnected and integrated a system is, the more conscious it is.
Precisely so. A brain with its billions of interconnected neurons would have a high level of consciousness, while a simple organism with fewer connections would have a much lower level.
Fascinating. So it's not just about the physical structure, but about the complexity of the information flowing through it.
Exactly.
Okay, what other scientific explanations are out there?
Well, there's another intriguing theory that focuses on a specific part of the brain called the claustrum.
The claustrum.
Yes, Francis Crick, one of the co-discoverers of DNA, and Christoph Koch proposed that the claustrum might act as a kind of conductor coordinating activity across different brain regions to create a unified conscious experience.
Okay, so we've got the theater metaphor, we've got complex math, and now we've got a conductor in the brain.
It seems like scientists are getting pretty creative.
They are. But how do these theories try to explain that subjective feeling of what it's like to be conscious, the so-called hard problem of consciousness?
Ah, yes, the hard that's the real head scratcher, isn't it?
How do you explain the feeling of seeing the color red or the taste of chocolate?
These theories provide frameworks for understanding how the brain processes information, which is a crucial step.
Sure.
But whether they can fully capture the essence of subjective experience is still very much up for debate.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if we need a completely different way of thinking to truly crack the code of consciousness.
Perhaps, and that's what makes this field so exciting. There's always more to discover, more to question, and more to understand.
Speaking of pushing the boundaries of understanding, some scientists have even suggested that quantum mechanics might play a role in consciousness.
That's right. Some physicists argue that classical physics, with its deterministic laws, simply can't account for the subjective experiential nature of consciousness.
So they're turning to the strange world of quantum mechanics for answers.
Exactly. Quantum mechanics, with its inherent uncertainty and strangeness, might offer a more promising avenue.
So are they suggesting that our brains are like miniature quantum computers?
That's one interpretation, for example. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff proposed a theory called Orkshore, which suggests that consciousness arises from quantum computations happening in microtubules, tiny structures found inside brain cells.
Hold on, quantum computations in our brains. Okay, now we're venturing into the truly mind-bending territory.
I know, right?
But is there any actual evidence to support these claims?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? While it's a fascinating idea, quantum mind theories are still highly speculative.
Okay.
And in fact, a recent experiment in 2022 casts significant doubt on some of these theories.
So for now, the link between quantum mechanics and consciousness remains a big question mark.
It's a mystery waiting to be unraveled.
Okay, well, quantum consciousness is still a mystery, but what about artificial consciousness?
Artificial consciousness.
Could we create machines that are truly aware, that have their own subjective experiences?
Now, that's a question that takes us deep into the realms of science fiction, ethics, and philosophy.
Yeah, it does feel like we're stepping into a whole other dimension here.
We are. The Turing test, proposed by Alan Turing back in 1950, has been a long-standing benchmark for evaluating machine intelligence.
Right, the Turing test. If a computer can convincingly imitate human conversation, fooling interrogators into thinking it's a real person, it's said to have passed the Turing test.
Exactly.
But does passing the Turing test actually mean that a machine is conscious?
That's a great question, and the answer is not necessarily.
Oh.
The Turing test focuses on behavior and intelligence, not on subjective experience.
So a machine could pass the test without truly understanding the meaning behind the words it's using.
Precisely. It's like philosopher John Searle's Chinese room thought experiment.
Oh yeah, the Chinese room. I've heard of that one.
He imagines himself in a room following instructions to manipulate Chinese symbols. Without actually understanding the language, he could pass a Turing test for Chinese. But would he truly understand what he's saying?
He would be able to manipulate the symbols, but not actually understand the meaning behind them.
Exactly. And Searle argues that this is the same for computers.
So even if a machine can mimic human behavior perfectly, we still can't be sure if it's actually having subjective experiences like we do.
Precisely. And that raises profound questions about what it truly means to be conscious, and how we can even begin to measure or assess consciousness in something that's not human.
This is definitely a deep dive. We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
From defining consciousness to exploring the mind-boggling possibilities of quantum minds and artificial intelligence.
And we haven't even scratched the surface.
I know, and we haven't even touched on things like the impact of drugs on consciousness or the idea of consciousness in animals and plants.
There's so much more to explore.
Which is exactly what we're going to do when we come back after a quick break.
I can't wait.
When we return, we'll delve into the intriguing connection between consciousness and awareness and how attention shapes our experience of the world. Stay tuned.
See you soon.
This is your need to know. This is your need to know. Is your need to know.
Welcome back to our deep dive into consciousness.
All right, so before the break, we were really getting into some of these scientific theories.
We were
Trying to explain this phenomenon of consciousness.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, but now I want to kind of shift our focus a little bit to the connection between consciousness and awareness,
Okay. Yeah, that's a really important distinction to make.
because it seems like we often use those terms interchangeably.
We do.
But are they really the same thing?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
In the context of philosophy and psychology, awareness is often defined as the perception or knowledge of something.
Okay.
It's about having information available to your conscious mind.
So basically, if you're aware of something, you know it exists.
Yes, but there's a catch.
Oh, there's a catch. Okay.
You can actually be aware of something without being explicitly conscious of it.
Okay, how is that even possible?
Well, there's this fascinating phenomenon called blind sight.
Blind sight.
Yeah, individuals with damage to certain parts of their brains can actually respond to visual stimuli,
Okay.
even though they report being completely unaware of seeing anything.
Wait, so they're reacting to things they can't see.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
How is that even possible?
It seems counterintuitive, but blind sight suggests that information can be processed and acted upon by the brain, even without reaching the level of conscious awareness.
It's like their brain is seeing it, but they're not.
Exactly. It really highlights that distinction between awareness as this basic level of information processing
Okay.
and consciousness as this more complex state of subjective experience.
So maybe we can think of awareness as the raw data.
Yeah,
And consciousness is what happens when our brains interpret and experience that data.
that's a great way to put it.
Okay, good.
It's like the raw ingredients versus the finished meal.
I like that.
And this brings us to another crucial aspect of consciousness: attention.
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 Yeah, we can't possibly be consciously aware of everything all the time, right?
Right, we'd be completely overwhelmed.
Exactly. Our brains have to focus. They have to filter out the noise and decide what we pay attention to.
It's like a spotlight shining on certain things while others fade into the background. That's a perfect analogy. Attention acts like a spotlight, illuminating specific aspects of our experience while leaving others in the shadows.
So could we say that attention is like the gatekeeper of consciousness?
Absolutely.
It decides what gets through to our conscious mind.
Exactly, and it can operate in different ways.
Like how?
Well, sometimes it's driven by external stimuli, like a sudden loud noise or a flash of bright light.
Okay.
That's called exogenous attention. It's
Yep.
automatic and involuntary.
It's like our brains are wired to pay attention to anything that might signal danger or something important happening in our surroundings.
Exactly, it's a survival mechanism.
But we can also direct our attention intentionally, right?
Absolutely. We can focus on something specific even if there are other distractions around us. That's called endogenous attention. It's deliberate and requires effort.
Like when you're trying to read a book in a noisy cafe.
Exactly. You have to really focus to block out all those surrounding conversations and distractions.
Yeah, it takes effort.
It does. Endogenous attention allows us to prioritize information that's relevant to our goals and to filter out irrelevant distractions.
It makes you realize how much control we actually have over our own awareness. We can choose what to focus on, what we let into our conscious experience.
Within limits, of course, our brains are constantly bombarded with information.
Oh, yeah.
And we can only consciously process a tiny fraction of it.
That's true.
But that ability to selectively attend to certain aspects of our experience is fundamental to how we navigate the world, make decisions, and even form our sense of self.
It's fascinating to think that something as seemingly simple as paying attention
I know.
is actually this complex cognitive process that plays such a vital role in shaping our conscious experience.
And there's still so much we don't know about how attention works, how it interacts with other brain processes, and how it contributes to that subjective feeling of conscious awareness.
Speaking of subjective feelings, earlier we touched on how drugs can alter consciousness.
Yeah.
But what about more natural ways to influence our awareness and attention, like meditation or hypnosis?
Those are great examples. Practices like meditation have been used for centuries to cultivate greater awareness, focus, and self-control.
Okay.
Through techniques like focused attention or mindfulness, individuals can train their minds to become more aware of their thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without getting carried away by them.
It's like learning to observe your own mind from a distance without getting caught up in the drama.
Exactly. And this detached observation can lead to a greater sense of clarity, calm, and even insights into the nature of your own mind.
So it almost sounds like meditation could be a tool for scientific exploration of consciousness itself.
In a way, yes. By training individuals to become more aware of their own mental processes, meditation can create a more controlled and introspective environment for studying the subjective experience of consciousness.
Interesting.
And some neuroscientific studies have shown that long-term meditation practice can actually lead to measurable changes in brain structure and function.
Really?
Yeah, particularly in areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness.
So it's not just New Age fluff. There's actual scientific evidence that meditation can change the way our brains work.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
And it's not just meditation hypnosis, while still somewhat controversial and not fully understood, also offers this window into the malleability of consciousness and the power of suggestion.
I've always been fascinated by hypnosis. Is it really possible to control someone's mind through suggestion?
Well, it's not about mind control in the way it's often portrayed in movies or TV shows.
Right.
Instead, hypnosis seems to involve this heightened state of suggestibility, where individuals are more open to accepting and acting upon suggestions from the hypnotist.
Okay.
This can lead to changes in perception, behavior, and even memory.
So maybe it's more about tapping into the power of the subconscious mind.
That's one interpretation, and while the exact mechanisms of hypnosis are still debated, it suggests that our conscious experience is far more fluid and influenced by external factors than we might realize.
Yeah, that's a bit unnerving, isn't it?
It can be.
That we might be more susceptible to suggestion than we think.
It raises those fascinating questions about the nature of free will, the boundaries of our conscious control, and the potential for influencing our own mental states through suggestion and practice.
So we've explored awareness, attention, and even ways to influence our conscious experience.
Oh, we have.
But what about the flip side of the coin?
What do you mean?
What happens when these intricate processes go wrong?
Ah,
What about disorders of consciousness?
that's a crucial and often overlooked aspect of consciousness research.
Okay.
Disorders of consciousness like coma or a vegetative state can result from brain injuries, illnesses, or other factors that disrupt the normal functioning of the brain.
Okay.
These conditions can be devastating, leaving individuals unable to communicate, interact with their surroundings, or experience the world in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it must be incredibly challenging to diagnose and treat these disorders,
It is.
especially when we still don't fully understand how consciousness works in the first place.
Absolutely. Diagnosing disorders of consciousness can be incredibly difficult, as it often relies on observing subtle behavioral responses or using brain imaging techniques to detect signs of awareness or brain activity.
And I imagine the treatment options are pretty limited.
They are often focusing on supportive care rehabilitation and hoping for spontaneous recovery.
So really just kind of waiting and seeing.
In many cases, yes.
It's a stark reminder of how delicate and precious our conscious minds really are.
It is.
And it underscores the importance of ongoing research into these disorders, not just for developing better treatments, but also for gaining a deeper understanding of consciousness itself.
Precisely by studying what happens when consciousness breaks down, we can gain valuable insights into how it works in its healthy state.
Okay, so we've gone from the depths of our own brains
Yeah.
to this fascinating realm of awareness and attention.
We have.
But there's another big question looming out there.
Okay.
Can consciousness exist outside of the human brain?
Now you're talking.
Could plants, animals, even the universe itself be conscious?
Now you're venturing into territory that will really challenge our assumptions about consciousness.
I'm ready. Let's go. All right, so we're back and ready to explore this mind-blowing realm of non-human consciousness.
Buckle up, because we're about to challenge everything you thought you knew about awareness.
Okay, let's start with something a little closer to home, plants.
It's plants.
Is plant consciousness a real thing, or is that just some new age woo-woo idea?
It's definitely a question that sparks a lot of debate.
Yeah, because on the one hand, plants don't have brains or nervous systems like we do.
Right. They're completely different kinds of organisms.
But they do exhibit some pretty remarkable behaviors,
They do.
suggesting a level of awareness and responsiveness to their environment.
Yeah, like how they grow towards the light.
Exactly. But is that really evidence of consciousness?
Well, it's more complex than you might think. Plants can sense changes in light, temperature, gravity, and even touch.
Oh, wow.
They can communicate with each other through chemical signals, warning of danger, or sharing resources.
Really? So they have like a whole communication network going on underground.
It's pretty amazing. And some plants, like the Venus flytrap, even exhibit rapid movements that seem almost predatory.
Yeah, I've seen videos of those. It's kind of freaky.
It is. It makes you wonder what's really going on in there.
So are they actually thinking or feeling something?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, how do we even begin to answer that?
Well, we can't ask a plant what it's experiencing, so we have to rely on observing its behaviors and interpreting the underlying mechanisms.
So it's all about inference.
Exactly. Some scientists argue that these complex responses are simply the result of chemical and electrical signaling pathways, a kind of plant-specific intelligence, but not involving conscious awareness.
So like a sophisticated biological program running in the background, but no actual subjective experience.
That's one interpretation, but others, like plant neurobiologists, suggest that these intricate signaling networks might be more than just simple reflexes.
Okay, so what are they saying?
They're proposing that plants might actually possess a form of distributed consciousness, a kind of network intelligence that allows them to perceive and respond to their environment in a holistic way.
A network intelligence. So
Yeah.
instead of a centralized brain, it's more like the whole plant is thinking.
That's the idea. It's still a fringe idea, but it challenges us to really rethink our assumptions about what consciousness might look like and where it might exist.
It's a pretty radical concept.
It is.
Okay, so plant consciousness is still up for debate, but what about animals?
The age-old question. Do our furry friends really have conscious minds like ours?
Right. I mean, we all love our pets, but are they really experiencing the world in a way that's similar to how we do?
It's tough to say for sure because, again, we can't directly access their subjective experiences.
Right.
But different animals exhibit vastly different levels of cognitive abilities and behaviors.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some, like insects, have relatively simple nervous systems and seem to operate mostly on instinct. But others, like primates, dolphins, and even some birds, demonstrate remarkable problem-solving skills, social intelligence, and even self-awareness.
Yeah, I've seen videos of crows using tools to get food. It's incredible.
Exactly, and that's just one example. Chimpanzees have been shown to recognize themselves in mirrors, suggesting a sense of self. Dolphins communicate with each other through complex vocalizations that might even constitute a form of language, and some bird species display remarkable feats of memory and spatial navigation.
So we're seeing that some animals are definitely conscious?
It's difficult to say for certain, but the evidence strongly suggests that at least some animals possess a level of cognitive sophistication that goes beyond simple instinct or programmed responses.
So it's not just about reacting to stimuli, it's about actually experiencing the world, having goals and tensions and even emotions.
It seems that way. It makes you wonder what it's like to be a bat, as the philosopher Thomas Nagel famously pondered.
What does the world look like through their eyes?
Exactly. And that's the heart of the challenge. We can study animal behavior, we can analyze their brain activity, but we can never truly know what it feels like to be another creature.
Yeah, it's like trying to imagine a color you've never seen before.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gone from plants to animals.
We have.
But now I have to ask, where does it end?
Where do you think it ends?
I mean, could consciousness exist on even grander scales, like in the universe itself?
Now you're venturing into the truly cosmic realm.
Bring it on.
The concept of panpsychism proposes that consciousness is actually a fundamental property of the universe present in all matter.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that rocks and stars have feelings?
Panpsychism doesn't necessarily imply that everything has a human-like consciousness.
Okay.
Instead, it suggests that consciousness might exist in a vast spectrum of forms, varying in complexity and intensity depending on the organization and structure of matter.
So it's like a universal consciousness that permeates everything,
Yeah,
but it manifests differently depending on the system.
that's one way to think about it. And while it's a highly speculative and philosophical idea, it does resonate with some physicists and cosmologists who see consciousness as an integral part of the universe's fabric.
Wow, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
It makes you realize that our human-centric view of consciousness might be incredibly limited.
I think it is. We might just be one small expression of consciousness in this vast interconnected web of awareness.
It's almost too much to wrap your head around.
It is. It really stretches the boundaries of our imagination.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into consciousness.
We have.
And wow, what a journey it's been.
It has been a wild ride.
We've journeyed from the depths of our own brains to the far reaches of the universe.
And encountered some truly mind-bending ideas along the way.
We have. And while we may not have all the answers, one thing is clear. The exploration of consciousness is a journey that's just beginning.
It's a mystery that will continue to fascinate and challenge us for generations to come.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought. What does consciousness mean to you?
Where do you see it existing in the world?
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep your minds open to the infinite possibilities of the universe and the mysteries within.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
This is your need to know. Show whispers in a silent shout. Logic's gone, there's no doubt. Upside down, the world's discreet. The invisible rise, no small feat. The intellect, senseless climb. Unseen mover, out of time. Words without a trace of mine, riding, but never to find. Willow trees and saffron tea. I can't believe my mind is leaving me. Gibberish reigns, the king of none. Chaos waltzes like a tipsy nun. Order lost, the crowd's all blown. Ascending quietly all alone. Nonsense speaks, a quiet roar. Through the ceiling, past the floor. The intellect, a silent scream. Awake inside a dreamer's dream and dream and dream and dream. The intellect, senseless climb. Unseen mover, out of time. Words without a trace of mine. Riding, but never to find. Willow trees and saffron tea. I can't believe my mind is leaving me. Nonsense speaks, a quiet roar. Through the ceiling, past the floor. The intellect, a silent scream. Awake inside a dreamer's dream and dream and dream and dream. The intellect, senseless climb. Unseen mover, out of time. Words without a trace of mine. Riding, but never to find. Willow trees and saffron tea. I can't believe my mind is leaving me. And so it goes, a quiet rise, unnoticed mover in disguise. The intellect, the world's new jest, risen high but never guessed. Whispers in a silent shout. Logic's gone, there's no doubt. Upside down, the world's discreet. The invisible rise, no small feat. The intellect, senseless climb. Unseen mover, out of time. Words without a trace of mine. Riding, but never to find. Willow trees and saffron tea. I can't believe